You want to start or scale your property development business to 8 figures and beyond? Then you're in the right place. This is the Property XPerts Podcast with Ben Richards and Jack Jiggins, two serial entrepreneurs bringing weekly insights from our award-winning businesses. In these podcasts, you'll learn how we found, funded and delivered over £80 million worth of property in the last 6 years, with templates you can use, deal analysis and deep dive discussions that will help you build your businesses successfully. We hope you'll enjoy. Hello. Big headline title today: where do we find deals? Most property developers and investors, that is one of the key things that you're going to have to get very, very good at. So stay tuned to this episode. Welcome to those that are new. My name is Ben Richards and that's Jack Jiggins, my business partner. And our aim is to deliver 1,000 homes and £1 billion in property in the UK, collaborating with trusted investors. And that's via our business XP Property. But if you're watching via video, you can see a lot of other company logos behind me on the wall. We run a series of businesses. We are multi-award winning serial entrepreneurs in generally the construction and built environment space. And we give value every week on these podcasts. So welcome. We do what we do with trusted investors. We have a number of open investments at the moment, ranging from £200,000 investments that can be secured against some of our retained assets, to a £2.5 million equity ticket that we are raising to undertake an office conversion to residential in Southwest London. We also have a social housing portfolio that we are looking to restructure. So if you are looking to invest £200,000 up to basically 5 million, reach out. We'd love to speak to you. We're here every week giving value, but also hopefully showcasing the fact that we know what we're doing. We're out there doing it. And we're not selling any courses. We are, genuine business owners that like making money and adding value and growing businesses. So yeah, reach out if you've got any investment requirements or any funds to invest into UK real estate. Sorry, my phone's going off. There you go.
I thought that was mine.
No, that was me. So it is the 5th of December, and today we're going to be talking about where you can find deals. Going to be going through an epic house tour for Aura, back to Oxford Uni for Jack, a consultation worth £220,000, up valuations. Do they exist, or is it like rocking horse shit? Sharing across businesses. What do our followers want more of? And a shout out to the Ground Up Network. And as always, a Q&A at the end where we've got some preloaded questions, but we want you to be making some further questions and comments as we go through this, as you think of them. We are here free to answer your questions every week. So don't lose this opportunity. If you've got any burning business questions, any property development and investment problems that you're having, and you want some insight from us, then do drop them in the comments down below. Cool. On to the big hitter. Where do we find deals?
Straight into it. So someone asked me this the other day, and I think it's one of those points that we have discussed before in episodes, but I'm going to give you a 101 breakdown of how we've built a reputation for building a pipeline. And it's not easy. I think if you can capital raise and you can find deals, you're 80% of the way in property. Obviously, most other things you can outsource and pay people for, but this is where the real skill and value is created. And I'm just going to go through methodically of, people say to me, where do you find deals, and expect me to say Rightmove or direct to vendor. There's way more complicated than that, but you can simplify it yourself to make sure you have more success in securing deals. So I really want people that maybe have had difficulties, try implement this sort of 5-6 step process and come back to me and feedback how you get on, because it is really important. So I start off with saying, what are your goals? Because the first deal I ever did, I bought I exchanged on a 20,000 square foot building in Birmingham that was potentially going to be a massive HMO, maybe C1 like service accommodation use. And it was completely the wrong deal fit for me, completely outside of my location, my remit, where I wanted to go. And it was just that a cheap deal, looked good, threw myself into it and made a big error. We managed to back that deal before we completed it, because we couldn't get the funding for it. And that was, we're going back 10 years now. And I look back at that and I just think, naive, lack of direction, jumped at the opportunity rather than manifesting opportunities that create the life, create the business, create the value in the business that you need. And without that planning, you end up getting caught into deals that you might not necessarily fit your criteria or your goals. And and that might have been, everyone likes a deal. So whether it's got a sales tag against it and you're getting it 30% below what you think it's worth, it might have been the value at the end through the development. But there were so many things that was off mark with that deal that now reflecting back, I just didn't have a lot of clarity on what I wanted to do and wasted a lot of time on that particular project. And in hindsight, should have never bought it, should have focused on my strategy, which I feel like we're fairly dialed down now. And it's okay to not know what your strategy is, but get working on it. Get looking at your resource skills, your skill gaps, where you want to be, what you want to achieve, what cash flow you need, what sort of wealth generation you want to build. So route number one is figure out your goals, because without figuring out your goals, you won't know quantum size, you won't know the team you want to build, you won't know where you start, you won't know where you're capable to start. You might not know what locality you want to be operating in. You might not know who you're going to be working with. So get to the drawing board. Don't look at any deals on Rightmove and sort of, do that daydreaming that we all do and look at luxury homes, or whether it's a penthouse suite or whether it's a cliffside development that you would see on Grand Designs. Stick to your strategy, focus on the business. And once you've focused on the business, then focus on deals that fit into that business plan, because you need that dialed down first. That's really, really important. Ben and I have made mistakes of buying deals that are too small in XP Property, and actually people think that sounds ridiculous. Like, how can you buy a deal that's too small if it works? Well, we've got a team that's got overheads, and hourly that costs us money. So whether it's 2 units or 20 units, it's a similar amount of work. I don't have that team in Central Suite, so a 2-unit scheme might even be too big for that business. So understanding that business plan is super, super, super important. If anyone would like a template, we've got a business plan template. We're happy to share that for free. It's called a strategy on a page. You can work on a 5 or a 3-year business plan. You can focus on the cash flow income that you need to then whittle that down into your KPIs of what you need to be doing without getting distracted on your path. The beauty of that is the compounding value of a successful business plan over 10 years, in my opinion, will outperform a scattergun approach where you're taking on things that are outside of the plan and the remit. Once you've got your plan dialed down, you then need to think about strategies. You then need to think about what do you want to achieve, whether it's build to rent, build to sell, a mix of the two, service accommodation, HMOs, social housing, a service-based business. There's nothing wrong with just running a service-based business in property and construction and not actually buying stuff. Figure out what strategies you want to deliver on and get working on that. Once you've got those strategies, there's certain remits of profitability, indefinite rate of returns on capital. That's getting really, really detailed. And I don't necessarily want to go into that detail today. I'm sure we could do on an episode, maybe comment, yes, please, detail on analysis of different strategies. And I could do a sort of 101 of what returns we would focus on in each strategy. But let's just focus on the placement in the market and where we're looking for. So you've dialed down your goals, dialed down your strategy. Next, really important thing that people miss off is build your guide. Like, I want you to build a guide of what you're looking for so that a 5-year-old child understands what you're looking for. All the time, I see people like developers, and I was like this before, spoon feed an agent to understand when to reach out to you, and ideally that's before it goes to market, or even if it's a land agent or even a homeowner, a landowner. What that guide should look like is it's simple, digestible, and I've got an example for you. So if a commercial agent, surveying company, whatever it may be, say, what do you typically buy? That's an open for you to give your digestible overview. I would typically, in XP Property, say we operate in the south. We're open to any use class or land. We need to have some form of value add development or asset management or both. We're happy to look at distressed deals, and we will deliver schemes between 1 and 12 million GDV. Now, that's a short, sharp synopsis. They've taken it on board. I've kept it very broad. I don't think it's even niching down is great. If you build a niche, fantastic. But I would equally say that the broader it is, you want to discount the deal and not let the agent discount the deal, because they might not spot something that you might. So I've gone through goals, strategy, really digestible translation of marketing. And we actually have something called a purchase requirements document, which we attach to agents' emails when we send them emails, so that they've got an overview, and that's got a location of a map, the values, the use classes, and the size that we deliver. Next, what I would like you to do is work out your competitive advantage. If, like Ben, you run an architectural practice, you would be very good at delivering things that have size optimization, value gain, and value engineering. If you run a construction business, you'll be better at delivering things that have a lumpier build costs. So rather than taking on a block of flats that need 100 grand spent on it, maybe buy a development site of 2 units that's got a build of 600 grand, because your competitive advantage will allow you to add more value in that big chunk of that deal. And that's super important. And if I get sent a land deal that I don't believe has any architectural or design value increases, and it's going broad on the market, I will not analyze that deal, because I know we're not the most competitive bidder in that market space, and I'll be better off looking at other things. And acquisitions is more about discounting the deals that don't work and spending as little time as possible on those deals than spending the right amount of time on the ones that do, because that will naturally come out of the top. Cool. Now on to like the actual delivery of this. So I believe there's 3 major ways of finding deals. On market, which is your typical on market digital or old school estate agencies, LoopNet, Property Link, Zoopla, Rightmove. Set alerts, build your criteria, make sure you get inbound feeds on those various deals. You then have off market, which is where you've somehow identified a list or a site off market, so it's not typically in the public domain, and you're contacting them directly, whether that's a letter, a point of contact, a reference, or whatever it may be, is the second option. And then last but not least, network and introductions. So to go through the 3 of them, what I would love for all listeners to do is figure out now what percentage, and network is quite unpredictable, but between on market and off market, work out what percentage you need to be doing in each of these to hit your goals. So back to the original foundations of this original conversation. What are your goals? How do you hit them? I know people that have wanted to build development companies that are cash flowing a team of 4 people within 3 years. Sorry to break the news to you, you're not going to do that with off-market deals, because you won't be able to bring in the revenue that quickly off the back of letter sends, engagement and conversion off those letter sends, coffee after coffee after coffee in Margaret's kitchen while you're talking about her orchard that could be 6 houses, getting it agreed with a typically low success rate on the breadth of all of these sites you're going to be looking at, getting it in legals, getting planning consented, getting on site, getting fees in the business, and then selling that site on. In my opinion, that will take 3 years from a standstill start. You might get lucky with a couple of sites that are quick turnarounds, but in my opinion, to build a sustainable off-market business, you need a minimum of 3 years to start revenue generating, and that costs money. So if you're a one-man band with a service-based business supporting your overheads, cool, that works. That might fit within your goals. Building a development company, I believe that is very difficult to do. Now look, on market, it's immediate. The seller has gone through the emotional decision to sell the property. So that's a very long time period that you have already negated, but the conversion rate is a lot lower once you get the engagement. Because you're in the market domain, it's difficult to gauge how well or successfully you're allowed to convert that to a sale, because you're part of bidding packs, there's competition, etc. Which understanding your competitive advantage is really important. Obviously, understanding the deal, the market, the gross development values, accurate build costs, and all of those things are really relevant. But this isn't how we find deals. That's how we make them work. So that's competitive advantage in dialing down your numbers. But what is really important with on-market deals is saving yourself time. So across all of these platforms, across all these inbound leads and outbound searching online, we're looking for those deals that we typically grade in 3 accounts. So I'll grade it out of 5 of how well it's marketed, because if it's badly marketed, that will give you an advantage. I will give it a grade of 5 again, of who is the agent or the point of contact that is listing it. If it's an agent you know really well and you've got a strong relationship with them, that should rank higher than an agent you've never worked with. And then 5, and then another point of 5, the deal itself. So how applicable is that deal to the sort of exact avatar deal that you're looking for? Once you've graded that mass market out of 555, a total score of 15, the cream rises to the top, which is most suitable to you. So you're building a layer of qualification internally, which makes life easier for you to get that deal conversion over the line. Once you are getting to the point where you're getting offers out, you need to be master negotiator, understand all the requirements of the seller, be super creative, and it's down to you to be that solid business negotiator, understanding of all the moving parts, all the requirements that the seller requires to appease that, but also cater for your internal benefit commercially to get that deal over the line. Obviously have a follow-up pack, your track record, communicate really well. Also, use a bit of fear of loss if you need to. Here's our bid, but we've got other offers out. Let us know how we get on, but we have the right to withdraw our offer if we need to. And you could also potentially offer creatively, whether that's an upfront cost with a deferred consideration, whether you need to get planning, so offer subject to planning, all that creativity we've already discussed in previous episodes, but I won't go into too much detail around that. And then the most important thing with on-market and off-market deals is follow-up. And if you're a YouTube listener, you could probably see our pipeline from 2020 to 2023. The images that have a gold circle around, we secured on the follow-ups. That's what we've either missed out, the agents pulled it from the market, or the sellers pulled it from the market. It's been sold by a higher bidder. And it was until the follow-up process when someone didn't perform that we stepped in to perform. And it's about 1 in 3 deals from offer acceptance to exchange that fall through. And guess what? Sellers more motivated, more considerate to look at your bid. And as long as you give them confidence you can do the deal, make sure you communicate that and get the deal over the line. Last but not least, so we touched on market, we touched on off market. Off market, just to sort of talk through how that may work if you haven't heard of it before. There are different land softwares out there that's, Searchland, Property Insight, Property Data, Nimbus, where you can put layers over a search criteria and find spots that you think might have development scope, whether that be planning, opportunity, whether it might be leases coming to an end, whether it might be just the general location, or whether it's a brownfield site within the settlement boundary, whether it's infill or whatever it may be. And then you can build a list, send out a bunch of letters. Those letters need to be catered for the reader. I was actually told by an architect, a guy I went to school with this week, who runs an architectural practice. There's actually a business out there that finds the land, using AI, finds out who the landowner is, finds out who they are, finds out where they live, what party they've been voting for, whether it's Labour, Conservative, Tory voter, and then adapts that letter considering the reader's sort of background and prowess, which is really interesting to make it resonate with them and build that trust to give you a call. So that's quite cool. But that is off-market stuff. You can also have a bunch of letters in your glove box of your car. So if you're driving past a site, you can door knock. I love the thought of door knocking. One of my first deals that we tried to get over the line, it was actually off the back of a door knock. And you can then just fire letters off the back of that are a little bit more generic into people's letterboxes. You can also off-market might be if you have a hoarding up on your site saying sites wanted, land wanted, on your back of your van or whatever it may be. That is off-market too. Off-market and on-market also fall into the third avenue, which is your network, the people that you know, the people that make recommendations. Today, I'm actually going to see a site that was shared with me by someone in my Goldman Sachs course. So that is someone that I've met on a business course, nothing to do with property. They know I'm the property person in that room, and they've asked me to go and have a look at that land deal. Now, I sort of, as a friend, was happy to take a look at it and suggest whether I think it's got planning scope. From a commercial angle, yes, there might be scope for us to work on that site, but the principle is there that came from my network, not necessarily property network. That is how we secured our Marlow deal. That is how we've secured other deals that we've delivered in our business. And your network is really important to be known as that property person and share with people that you're looking for sites. One thing that I would say hugely benefits in that is, I asked earlier if you could think about your competitive advantage. Where are you good at in the deal? Where do you fit in the deal? I know people that have really good source to capital. They're good at funding the deal, but they might not be the delivery partner. So their resource that they're bringing to the table might be capital. Or as I mentioned, if you're an architect, you might bring design and delivery. Or if you're a construction business, you might offer the procurement, construction and delivery of the development. So think about your resource, and can you collaborate your resources with someone else within your network that might have the lead or might have some of the resource to do stuff, and collaborate with them. And that's the third avenue of areas that we look for deals. And Ben's actually shared an example last week of a couple of opportunities that came away off the back of TikTok messaging. So your network is very valuable. A lot of deals that we do, we're brought in as a resource to get people out of the shit in the areas that they don't have skills, lean on our credibility to get better lending terms, lean on our skills and experience to do what we need to deliver. We've JV'd with investing partners to utilize their skill gap. They've got the capital, but they don't know where to find the sites, design them, deliver them, and exit. So think about that resource collaboration. And then the three areas that we look for deals. I told you to think about percentages and where you water the plants that you're the two plant pots between off market and on market. We probably do 80% of our time and energy and resource in on market deals, which is contrary to a lot of people on social media saying that on market deals do not work. I'm happy to show you through our track record and case studies that they do. And it's us finding value in those deals, which is the most important factor. So on market deals do work. Off market deals have better margin, but take forever to secure. And sometimes people need cash flow to deliver deals first. And there is no fault in doing that. That's kind of like a big 101. I hope that was useful. Obviously, I could talk about acquisitions for at least 50 hours if it came down to it. It would probably be the topic that I'd talk about if I had to do some sort of charity 24-hour podcast.
Speaking,
which might be an idea actually, Ben.
Or write a book.
Or write a book. Yeah, I mean, I'd rather AI just
on the cards.
Figure out everything that I've said online and write it for me.
That's it, yeah. That sounds like the best way forward.
Yeah, we can probably do that. I can imagine ChatGPT. Here is my YouTube channel.
Yep.
I am Jack. Can you please write this book as a dyslexic person talking about acquisitions?
Nice. I'm sure there's huge amounts of value that people have got from that. Let us know down in the comments. Give us a thumbs up, subscribe, all that good stuff. On to me and some of the stuff that I've been working on. And I just wanted to promote the latest video that Aura have uploaded to their YouTube channel. If you go to Aura Architecture on YouTube, this is the image you would be presented with. Project called Norman Park in Bromley Common. Funky red zinc cladding roof, white render, loads of glazing, rear extension, loft extension, whole house refurbishment. We've gone to town on this project. It looks awesome. There's loads of cool features. So head over and check it out. We've had about 7,000 views in the last 7 days, which is very good for us. Has helped our YouTube channel kick on. And one thing I've noticed actually over the last week is that when you get one video that does really, really well, it actually filters down to some of the other videos that may have sort of got a bit stagnant with YouTube. So we've seen sort of an uptick in sort of viewership on some of the other videos that I still think are awesome, but have sort of gone to the YouTube grave to a certain degree. But they've now been resurrected with this new one. So yeah, check it out. It's a full sort of behind the scenes of the project, what we did, how we did it, what the problems were for the client, how we've resolved that. This is the type of project that we want to be doing for clients, where they're spending somewhere between 600 and £1 million on completely transforming the property. This one hadn't been touched since the 1950s. So yeah, super excited by it. Really loved walking around the property and showing you guys what it's all about. So yeah, do share it, give it some love if you haven't already. And talking about giving some love, if you do enjoy these podcasts, do rate them on Spotify, do leave a review on Apple. It all really helps for this podcast to get pushed wide and far. We know that you guys get value from it because you tell us. And for those that are tuning in via video, if you also like to listen to audio podcasts in the gym or on your drive to work, we do repurpose the video podcast into an audio format and release that at 5 a.m. on a Monday across all of your podcast platforms. So yes, if you we've got everything, we've got a platform for everyone. Cool. Jack's been back to school.
Yeah, so I had for those of you that weren't listening a year ago, I enrolled and did the Goldman Sachs Business Growth Program for 10,000 businesses, which they've exceeded now. It's well over 10,000. And it's basically like a condensed MBA for business owners and founders only. And you basically do I would call it kind of like a dissertation / business plan for your own business. And the sole focus is your own business, including a business growth presentation to the rest of the cohort, which is 60 people a year. And I thoroughly enjoyed the course. It's super intense. Like, I can remember a year ago, I worked every night from about 8 p.m. to midnight, sat on my laptop while the wife was watching some sort of Beverly Hills Secret Housewives or whatever it's bloody called. And it was really intense, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. Got a lot of clarity on my business. Also, I kind of found I fell out of love with education in my sort of teens and early adult years, because I feel that you're learning a lot about a lot of stuff that isn't relevant. And I really struggle. I've definitely got some form of something, whatever it is, condition, where if I'm not interested in something, it's almost physically impossible, unless you pay me, to pay attention and absorb information on it. But then on the adverse effect, if it's something I'm interested in, I kind of double down and struggle to get out of it, and kind of get a bit obsessed and addicted to sort of improving and incrementing value. And I think that's quite a natural thing for business owners, if I'm honest. So as a result, I loved this because it was all applicable. It was all relevant. There were a few topics that weren't that relevant, like international business and trade taxes and things like that, because realistically, there's little move on our business in those respects. But it's interesting to see it from other business owners. And obviously the network was amazing. And myself and Tara, who's in this photo, who's actually runs an architecture practice in London, had the fortunate event of being able to go back to the room we were in a year ago and see the new cohort. One of my good friends from school, is actually on the course this year. I recommended it to him. He runs a pretty quirky co-working business in central London. He's absolutely smashing it. He's done really well, and I guess he's enjoying the course. But we went back to be interviewed about what's happened a year on. Have we implemented our growth program? What advice would we give up to ourselves a year ago? And it was amazing to be in the room. And one of the main advice that I sort of gave is, one, build an action plan to implement the action plan that you've drawn up. Otherwise, it kind of goes by the wayside. And there's definitely areas of my business plan that life gets in the way and time gets busy, and I probably could have allocated more time to share that with either Ben or Rob in the businesses and implement more from it, because I've kind of forgotten a lot of the detail that we learned about. I mean, so much so I actually had to look in my WhatsApps to see what number cohort we were. That's how long ago it felt. But also they said, what else would you do? And our cohort have done a really good job of staying in contact. And we actually, open up to a dinner or two a year that we have between the cohort. And it's great because we get to sort of see everyone in the room again. And what I love about that, and this is kind of a symbolic example about the value of being surrounded by people that understand business and understand that business isn't always pretty, and understand that you might need help, recommendations, referrals, a new template document, a new system in your business. One of the dinners we met up, I was speaking to a lady that runs quite a unique business. I said, how is your year? And she said, it's been terrible. And I love that she said that, because I then, as a fellow business owner, and I knew her business pretty well, I could say, well, what's your limitations? What are you struggling with? And we then almost problem solved on the spot there. And you kind of think to yourself, as a network, who have you got to, if you tell them that business is terrible for this reason, that they actually understand it, take it on board, and can work with you to come up with some solutions. The way that I picture it is that, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And if those friends are not business owners, I'm not saying, cut ties. Some people do say that in the industry, and I'm not a massive believer of that. But what I will say is find a network of people that, rather than saying, because I feel like if you know that the person in front of you, it can't necessarily help your business problems, you just say, yeah, it's fine. And then you don't get any value from that. So be a bit selfish, build a community, And this is, I've done it for Goldman Sachs. I've obviously got it through other networks, one which will come on to you later. And I can sort of bounce ideas off Ben. I can bounce ideas off other people. And it's really important to build that community to help drive business forward.
Lovely stuff. Cool. And this next topic is actually off the back of a consultation that I did this week. For those that have been tuning in for a while, you'll know that we run a series of sort of mentorship, consultancy type programs, or ad hoc consultancy services. So people that tune into this, people that we've known for a while, people that have seen what we've been up to and want to learn from whatever walk of life they're in. So, HMOs, property investment, property development as a overall package, service-based businesses. We've got experience in all of that. So, Jack and I love it. It's an hour of kind of firefighting and sharing knowledge and sharing experience and trying to solve problems, just like Jack said, with the business school and the network that he's surrounding himself with. But this was a repeat mentee that we sort of mentor on a regular basis, and then sort of when shit's hitting the fan, it's a couple of extra sessions to try and get through some specific problems that she's having. She's a HMO investor, very successful, done really well, got some great projects lined up, had a few issues last year with some of her projects with planning and enforcement, and it's been a real challenge. But the types of conversations that we have and the value that we can bring was evident. She sort of comes off the call feeling way better about herself, her situation, with some clear actions to go ahead with to resolve some of the problems that she's got. And the reason I said it's worth 220 grand is that she was explaining and this goes back to what Jack was saying about, if you just say, yeah, things are okay, or like not really go into detail around your problems, no one's going to be able to give a solution to that. So in the consultancy sessions, it's about digging deeper. Okay, what's the structure? How are you doing it? Why have you done that? Drilling down to the detail, and then you can suggest things that they might not have thought about. And that was the case in this. It was a project where she's already got a great structure in place. She's buying it with a delayed with exchange completion for 12 months. So small deposit down. And in those 12 months of the delayed completion, she's going to be given the opportunity to develop the property. So she's not holding any costs from a finance perspective. She's like, I've got, a certain amount of money that I can put towards the construction works. I still need a little bit more, blah, blah, blah. And I'll have to try and find that, etc. I was like, well, why don't you ask the vendor? It's the same vendor that she's recently bought another asset from. So she knows that they've got some liquid cash because she paid them it on the previous project. And I said, well, why don't you ask for the full amount from the vendor on a 10% coupon or whatever it may be as a vendor finance loan? That way, the money that you've got can go towards buying another asset and moving, using that cash more wisely. She's like, oh my God, I can't believe it. I haven't thought of that. And that's the type of value that we want to bring. That's 220 grand worth of not savings, but ultimately she can save her own cash and go and buy more assets and continue to grow her wealth with her own cash whilst using vendor finance solution to lend towards the property. So these are the types of things that we want to be discussing with you guys. If you want some sort of ad hoc support with whatever business challenge you are having at the moment, we'd love to speak to you. Reach out to one of us or email info@xpproperty.co.uk, and we'd love to jump on a call with you and see how we can help. That was it.
I put this in here because all the time the phrase down val, and you get it's kind of like taboo in the industry, like down val this, I hate surveyors, down val that, blah, 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 blah. Not surveyors in our business. Our surveying business is measurements. So we can't, it's mismeasured rather than down val. And we don't really do that anyway. But I thought I'd put this in here because we got an app val, not for the property that you can see in front of you, for one in legal. So I couldn't share it just in case we've got any followers on our channel that might be interested in buying sites that we're interested in. But we had an up val, which is essentially a valuation that is slightly higher than we actually needed, which is great. And and boost the confidence of the scheme, us. I always say that when it comes to a valuation, you always want a maximum valuation possible, because you can always change the leverage of the finance. But if it's a low valuation, you can't gear up the finance to accommodate. So it's a really difficult thing, because it's kind of like a moving target that you're leveraging. So you might have to up the leverage and pay, and that will come at a cost. So we had a slightly higher valuation. We pulled together valuation decks, which went over to the valuer, which cover site overview, site location, summary of the deal, floor plans and layouts and the scope of the scheme, and existing valuation evidence of the building or the site, the proposed valuation evidence, a case study that we've done in our business before to show the product type, to build their confidence, accreditations, and then our business contact details. If you're watching on YouTube, you can screenshot these. And if you're listening, if you head over to the YouTube channel, there's a list there of how you can build this PDF document, which is it's a hymn sheet for the valuer to make their life easy. And that is one of the reasons that we do these, to hopefully encourage an accurate valuation that does come in where we need to. But I just wanted to share it. We had an up valuation, if that exists. So there you go. And that was actually selective picking on the valuer, because different outfits of different reputations, and we've had a good working relationship with these valuers. They understand the scope, the project, the scheme. They understand the quality of what we deliver, and as a result, it worked out okay.
We've actually had two up vals this week. We had Conley Hatch Lane that came back at like 100 grand more than what it previously did. So yeah, maybe things are looking more rosy.
Maybe we're just so pessimistic, Ben.
Maybe that's what property development does to you, I think, after 7 or 8 years.
I think if I had £1 for every time you sent in a WhatsApp group FFS this week,
it has been one of those weeks.
Dinner.
Yeah, it has been one of those weeks. Fucking hell. Cool. On to more interesting stuff. We mentioned at the start, in terms of, we have a variety of businesses, which those that tune in regularly know about. I just rattle them off. We've got Aura Architecture, XP Surveys, a measured building and topographical survey business, XP Property, our property development and investment business, Central Suites, HMO and lettings management company, and then Aparo Social, which is a social housing portfolio that we built in South London. So lots going on. And what we do probably 3 times a year is get together all as a collective. So, whether that be the XP crew and Central Suites crew will be in Henley. We'll get pizzas in, we'll have a presentation. We'll then share Zoom link and stuff for the Aura crew to zoom into and tune in. But it's a chance to get everyone together. And I think because there's so much overlap between the businesses, I think it's super important that everyone understands what's going in each business. Everyone can see the project from start to finish. So you've got people in XP Surveys who, if they were in any other business, any other surveying business, they'd go to site, they'd do the drawing, it would go out the door. They wouldn't see that building at all again. They don't see at all what happens to it thereafter. Whereas with us, they get to see the design through Aura and how that's being developed. And then they get to see it being developed out by XP Property. So they almost get to see that project go from start to finish, which for the surveyors is actually really rewarding, because they don't often get to see that happen. People within Central Suites often manage the blocks that XP Property hold within our portfolio. So having that connection between the team that are going to be managing the final article versus the project team that are delivering it, there's loads of crossovers there in terms of how it operates, what happens with the heating systems, with the postal addresses. All of that stuff is in-house effectively. So having that at hand creates efficiencies, better value, speed of delivery, etc. And that's why we've built this ecosystem of businesses. But I guess this is more about sort of understanding, if you've got multiple businesses, make sure that you're sharing that information in between the teams, and you're giving visibility across the board. And one sort of story that I always remember from my Berkeley Group days. I mean, I joined St. James, which is part of the Berkeley Group, one of the sister companies. I had an interview at St. George, decided to end up going for St. James because St. George was, as I found out, a revolving door of people coming in and out, because it was just not the atmosphere and culture that I wanted to be part of. St. James was still very ruthless and high performance and part of the Berkeley Group, so it's going to be, but it just wasn't as political. And St. George was a nightmare. But what surprised me massively was that you've got St. George, St. William, Berkeley Group, Berkeley South, St Edwards, St Willie, like all of the different sister companies that are part of the Berkeley Group. And what I found fascinating was that none of them talked together. I was like, you've got St Edward doing a massive scheme across the pond, across the River Thames, where it's exactly the same building type, probably using similar contractors, but all of the lessons learned were not being shared. And that completely blew me away. I was like, the Berkeley Group have been running for 40 years, and there's almost like a competition in between them, as opposed to like this sharing atmosphere of sharing and collaboration. And by the time I left, within the sort of 4 years, I think they had changed a little bit. They were still quite guarded, and it's quite funny seeing like our technical director go to a meeting with a technical director from another company, coming back and be like, oh yeah, they're doing this, they're doing that. And I didn't want to say that. And I was like, you're part of the same wider business. Why aren't you sharing information, sharing databases, sharing contacts, etc., sharing suppliers? I think with us, our mentality is that you want to learn from those mistakes, and it's all part of the wider group. So why wouldn't you be trying to be as efficient and as profitable in each entity as you possibly can by sharing? So yeah, just if you run numerous businesses, make sure that they're not isolated, they're not siloed into their own sections, and share. It's great for all of the reasons that we've discussed, as well as kind of team morale. And I think bringing everyone together and sharing is always a good thing to do. Cool. We want to know, what do our followers want more of?
I put this in here because we get a good bunch of questions, don't we? But we look at what we've been up to this week, what we think is useful for the followers. But I'd really, really love for our followers to tell us, like, what episodes have you enjoyed before? What do you want to see more of? Do you want to hear more about our personal day-to-day management? Do you want to hear more about the deal deep dives, which we've done before? Do you want to hear more about politics? Like, it's the world is your guys' oyster, and the reason we do this is to help others start interesting conversations, and we would love to hear what you would like us to do more of. So please comment on our YouTube channel, DM us, whatever it may be, because it makes our life easier, actually, because we have to be less creative to think about what we need to talk about. We're just asking you and you tell us.
I mean, people seem to like the deep dives that we've done. Like when you look back through the catalog, I'd say the most viewed episodes are the deep dive project reviews that we do, which do go into huge amounts of detail, and you'll learn a huge amount from those, where we break down literally every cost, that our full development appraisal, how much it's costing us, how we structured it, why we're structuring it that way, what planning permission we go through. Like it's a really great way to see from start to finish how a project operates. I mean, interestingly, looking at this screenshot, 454 views on episode 44, season 3, about tax. So maybe we're missing a trick, and we should actually talk more tax, because that one has like double views than what others have. But yeah, we want to know from you guys, what do you want us to cover?
It's up, DM, wherever you want. Send us a message.
Yeah, cool. And then this was just from me. Obviously Jack deals with it every week because he's on the thing. But the Ground Up pod, if you're not tuned into the Ground Up podcast, huge amounts of value every week. But what I wanted to really shout out was the go-karting event that they hosted last Friday. I thought it was amazing. There's like 40 people in the room, all good, largely lads. It's I did say like there's hardly a split of genders. It's pretty much all lads. But good camaraderie, really good racing down at Canary Wharf, so K1 Speed in Canary Wharf, and they're going to be hosting a lot more of these. And the main reason that I wanted to shout out is that they do have an event on January the 9th, which is a Friday, in London, which will be a full day event where you get to listen to these guys chat on stage, loads of different topics that will be discussed, loads of opportunities to mingle and network with other property investors, property developers from all over the UK and wider afield. And yeah, tickets are not that expensive at all. I can't even remember what they are, but maybe we'll put a link down
early bird tickets actually super early bird gets closed off tomorrow. So if you jump in, you'll be saving probably 35 quid, but I think they're about just over 100 quid. We've sold a lot of tickets now. We're over half sold in 180 capacity. So we anticipate to sell most of our tickets between Christmas and New Year. So get your tickets. Ben's actually, Aura and XP Surveys are sponsoring event. We got about just over a dozen event sponsors, and as Ben said, we'd love some ladies to come along.
Yeah, it definitely is male dominated at the moment. But I mean, that is kind of the construction industry, for right or wrong. So we do want more of a turnout from the ladies. So yeah, come along. You'll learn lots. You'll network lots. You'll meet loads of interesting people doing really cool things. So yeah, come along. Just a shout out to Xero. We've mentioned this numerous times. There's a 90% off a 6-month referral link down below. If you want a new financial accounting software that is super easy to use, that all of your accountants will love, for cash flow forecasts, balance sheets, profit and losses, then get the referral link down below into your business. Cool. And I've just actually realized this Q&A. Josh Grant mentioned on Spotify, hello lads, I'm looking for my next project at the moment and still fairly new to property. What software or strategies are you using to quickly assess price and validate a deal? I guess Jack's sort of gone through some of this in terms of how we find stuff at the front end, but tech wise, what do you use?
Yeah, so this question was actually asked on our XP group community WhatsApp group last week. To validate and assess deals, we always end up back on Excel. Like I cannot find, I think it's because we're so creative. Like every deal that we ever stack, it becomes so bespoke that we can't actually use a user interface that can really like keep up with what we're doing. So from an analysis perspective, we use, well, it's Google Sheets, but we use the equivalent of Excel. Obviously, there's tons of tools that can help around that. So you've got Searchland, Land Insight, Nimbus Maps, various different planning tools that you might be able to use to look at initial potential restrictions or reasons why planning might be a bit more difficult, flood zones, conservation area, highways, all that nonsense, which enables to do a quick ready reckoner. Price point and validating end values. You can use blended values. You can pull reports on Searchland property data. What we typically do is a few episodes ago, and I will have to try and dig it out, I shared a 6-step GDV exit value calculator, which starts with get the spreadsheet going with a blended pound per square foot off of property data or Searchland. Once you get to a point you like the look at the parameters of the deal, then go in a layer further and do a report. Then do a layer further and actually go on sold prices on Rightmove, find alike properties that are similar, and actually look at, has it got a garden? What's the living room like? What's the approach like? What's the communal areas like? Is it secure? All of these various different things. That's obviously your exit values and your GDV comparisons. Your finance costs, the best way to get used and familiar with finance costs is start going to market and getting lending terms on paper so that you can start putting in general rules of thumb, 2% in, 10% a year finance cost, 1% out. You then have got to work out the acquisition purchase cost, the finance cost, and then also the blended build in drawdown cash flow. So that can also then go into the spreadsheet. Build is really difficult. I can't sit and answer this question within a minute of how to get accurate build costs. It's just super tough to dial that down. So bring someone in that knows that, whether it's a contractor that and might use on the job, whether it's another party like us that have a lot of experience in, I don't think there's many people that could quote a commercial conversion better than us in the home counties, if I'm honest, because we're live on 5 of them. So we have really dialed down cost appraisals for conversions. If it came to new build land, we wouldn't be as good. So we'd bring in someone that we know, a new build contractor or another developer that's doing new build to have a look at what they're up to. And have that open conversation with them, see where you think they'll come in and where the site would be valued at. There's other costs you want to make sure you capture, gratuity fees, acquisition fees, stamp duty and land tax, pre-planning fees, post-planning fees, detailed design, compliance, third-party outfits like M&E contractors that you might need to bring in, utilities, and these have all got to be dialed down on a spreadsheet. So I think I've just ranted on for like 8 minutes, but the short answer is you can use some tools like Property Data or Searchland.
Nice. There you go, Josh. In depth analysis and response, as always, as part of the Property Experts Podcast. Cool. And yeah, if you have enjoyed this session, then please do like wherever you're watching it on. Basically, subscribe to the platform that you're watching on. Make sure that you're the first to get notified when we do release the audio format. We're here live every Friday at 4:30 p.m. on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, sometimes Instagram. But yes, if you want to learn more about some of the projects we're working on, head over to some of the previous episodes like the ones on screen. But for now, have a good weekend, everyone, and speak to you next week. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.